my screen. Her smile, it shines so bright. She's a queen with every scene. In the morning or the night, recipes and good vibes flow. Every video a gem. Her confidence, it grows and grows. We're inspired like her friends. Unstoppable Flora, she's got that power, spreading her aura, blossoming like a flower. Through the highs and all the lows, she remains so strong. Her spirit always glows. She's where we all belong. With every like and every share, we feel her energy. No storm too strong she can't bear. She's setting us all free. Unstoppable Flora, she's got that power, spreading her aura, blossoming like a flower. Recipes and good vibes flow. Every video a gem. Her confidence, it grows and grows. We're inspired like her friends. Unstoppable Flora, she's got that power, spreading her aura, blossoming like a flower. Through the highs and all the lows, she remains so strong. Her spirit always glows. She's where we all belong. Every share, we feel her energy. No storm too strong she can't bear. She's setting us all free. Unstoppable Flora, she's got that power, spreading her aura, blossoming like a flower. Through the highs and all the lows, she remains so strong. Her spirit always glows. She's where we all belong.
Petals got power, Florabella stands tall. Every drip, every drop, watch the haters fall. Channel sharp as thorns, ain't taking no mess. Scroll through her feet, feel that queen's finesse. Vines tangle tight, but Flora breaks free. Roots so deep, can't mess with her tree. From the mud she rises, roses from the dirt. Every comment section she lays down hurt. Flora's anthem, blooming under pressure. Resilient, resolve, ain't no lesser. Florabella's reign strong and relentless. Beauty in battle, queen sure defenseless. From the garden green to the concrete wall, Florabella, unstoppable nature's child. Leaves whisper secrets, she's the loudest shout. From the channel buzzing, she never backs out. Seed of strength, through seasons she grows. In the face of doubt, her spirit glows. Cameras ain't a limit, she branches out. Thorns in her crown, she wears it no doubt. Flora's anthem, blooming under pressure. Resilient, resolve, ain't no lesser. Florabella's reign strong and relentless. Beauty in battle, queen sure defenseless. Flora's anthem, blooming under pressure. Resilient, resolve, ain't no lesser. Florabella's reign strong and relentless. Beauty in battle, queen sure defenseless.
Florabella on my screen. Her smile, it shines so bright. She's a queen with every scene. In the morning or the night, recipes and good vibes flow. Every video a gem. Her confidence, it grows and grows. We're inspired like her friends. Unstoppable Flora, she's got that power, spreading her blossoming like a flower. Through the highs and all the lows, she remains so strong. Her spirit always glows. She's where we all belong. With every like and every share, we feel her energy. No storm too strong, she can't bear. She's setting us all free. Unstoppable flora. She's got that power, spreading her aura, blossoming like a flower. Recipes and good vibes flow. Every video a gem. Her confidence, it grows and grows. We're inspired like her friends. Unstoppable flora. She's got that power, spreading her aura, blossoming like a flower. Through the highs and all the lows, she remains so strong. Her spirit always glows. She's where we all belong. With every like and every share, we feel her energy. No storm too strong, she can't bear. She's setting us all free. Unstoppable flora. She's got that power, spreading her aura, blossoming like a flower. Through the highs and all the lows, she remains so strong. Her spirit always glows. She's where we all belong.
All right, guys. All right. Let me see. There's a little bit of interference that I'm hearing on my end. So let me see if I could do something to eliminate some of that. Nope. Go ahead and toss that over there. All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to my show. Thank you so much for joining me here today. Let me just equalize my sound a little bit. Just working on making sure I got the best sound quality for you guys that is not overwhelming or sounding crazy or anything like that. Let me turn down the treble, turn down the bass. Boom, 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 boom. Yeah. All right. Just want to make sure everything is good. But good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. It's 11 o'clock on Saturday, Eastern Standard Time. So I know some of you guys are just cracking your eyeballs wide open. You know, you're just waking up now, joining us. And it's okay. It's okay if you slackers are just waking up now, okay? It's fine. I'm here to bring you guys some content. Now, the reason why I'm coming back on this is because this and many other cases involving young people are rapidly developing. And so, in order to give you guys quality content, I want to make sure that I'm coming back as well to do follow ups and updates and things like that on cases that sort of are kind of shocking the nation or are still, being investigated and things like that. I want to make sure it's a bit scratchy, but you're good. Oh, what? How do I get rid of the scratchiness? I do think there's a little, like my soundboard is a little still trying to figure out all the perfect settings for this device with this computer. So I think this soundboard is general, like you can use it on any system. So it might just be how the two are coming together. But thank you for letting me know and for joining me this morning, this afternoon, whatever you call it in your time zone. So I wanted to go ahead and get started on a bit of an update on the Giovanni Pelletier case. This case again started. It became not popular, but became trending August 1st when we heard the story for the first time. Now, for those of you who don't know, this is a case of a 18-year-old boy going to meeting up with, or being picked up by the family of his of his father, right? And so his father's in jail, but he still wanted to connect and reconnect to that side of himself by getting to know his father's family. So it was set up and made for them to come pick him up. Mind you, they've never met him. He's never met them in person or anything like that, but he wanted to meet these family members, get to know them, get to know that side of his family. So, pretty much what happened was he got picked up by these people fairly late into the evening from North Carolina. And then, as the night progressed, not very much after he left, he texted his mother saying, "Help me." And then that's when the story, like once the mom started prodding and trying to find out what was going on, getting in contact with her son, that's when everything became more apparent about what was going on. The cousins came out, had their story about what happened. They say that he started acting erratically and they just left him on the side of the highway. So, not the best outcome of what you would think when your child's going to meet up with some cousins, clearly worst case scenario. So now that we're kind of up to speed, his body was found in a retention pond after they had been searching for him for several days in a highway that was only about 20 to 30 minutes away from his cousin's house. So they found his body, and the cousins and everyone are kind of sticking to that story of they were driving, he was acting erratically, they let him off on the highway. All right, so let's get into this article from Fox 13 Tampa Bay. And they say Giovanni Pelletier's body officially identified by medical examiner. Um, so the brief is about a body was found in Manatee County Retention Pond last week. Has been officially identified as Giovanni Pelletier. So there was so much decomposition on this body that they couldn't even identify him just off the rip, right? They needed to go and do testing, that test his dental records and things like that before they identified him. Good morning, Joshua. Good morning. Good morning, Beth. She says, "Good morning, Miss Flora and family. Haven't been here in a while. It's great to be back. Can't wait to watch your live stream." Thank you for joining me here today, Beth. My schedule has kind of been all over the place since I started doing body cam and other types of content. So thank you for finding me and joining me here again. Yes, a poor boy, honestly, because how something escalates for I don't care how crazy my family is acting in a vehicle with me, mind you, whether I met them or not. If this person is blood related to me, I'm not just going to leave them on the side of the road. So everything was very, very disturbing in the first case. Pelletier disappeared on August 1st after texting his mother, "Help me." Before texting his mother, Pelletier's cousin and two friends said he was acting erratically, and they let him out of a vehicle near I-70 and SR-70 in Manatee County, not far from where his body was found. A body was found, and they said it was Pelletier. Pelletier's family and detectives said the body belonged to North Carolina teen who disappeared a week earlier, but the medical examiner was not able to make a positive identification and said additional forensic testing was required due to the condition of his body. They found him. Took a week for them to essentially identify who he was. How are you guys doing with seeing the video? Not the video, the article. I know it might be a little difficult because you guys know the portrait screen is already a little bit smaller. Um, so let me go ahead and make this a little bit bigger. Hopefully, you guys can see a little better. All right, let me do just a few more degrees. There we go. All right, so the cause of death remains undetermined pending toxicology results, which are expected to take several weeks. Detective says they are pursuing multiple leads to learn more about the circumstances surrounding Pelletier's death, but added that there are no signs of foul play. The backstory: Pelletier was on vacation in Englewood with his family from North Carolina when he left around 1:30 a.m. Friday, August 1st, to go visit relatives on Florida's East Coast. He got into a vehicle with a cousin from his biological father's side of the family, along with two of the cousin's friends. But according to relatives, Giovanni had never met the men in person. He had only spoke to one cousin on the phone before. After reconnecting with his biological father's side of the family, Pelletier made plans for his cousins to pick him up to see additional family in Brevard County. Now, and you know what's kind of sad? I'm not trying to bring race into this, but this young man, his mother's family is Puerto Rican, whatever, Puerto Rican and Italian. His father is African American. So when you throw in racial dynamics like that and a disconnect from that other side, there can be identity issues. So as far as anybody could tell, this was him just seeking out his father to learn more about himself, right? Learn more about the other side of where he comes from. This is a similar story that a lot of people have, so that's why I think it was kind of even more relatable. Like, he just wants to meet his dad's family. Mom just wants to be supportive of that. He's 18, so obviously it's up to him. But I think he went into this with an open heart, which is kind of sad considering the outcome that played out for him. All right, so roughly 25 minutes into the trip, Pelletier sent a chilling message to his mother: "Help me." He also messaged other family members with similar pleas. That was the last time anyone heard from him. His cousins told Brevard County deputies Pelletier began acting erratically before exiting the vehicle and walking away near State Road 70 in Manatee County. His backpack and phone were the only items found. Pelletier was headed to Brevard County with his cousins to visit other relatives. Brevard County Sheriff Wayne Ivy said the family willingly turned over their vehicle to be processed. They said, "Take it, do whatever you need to do." The crime scene went through it and there was no evidence of wrongdoing, said Ivy. On Friday, August 8th, a family friend found a partially submerged body in a retention pond near the intersection, so that's where he was found. The body was positively identified as Pelletier on August 14th. What's next? Though the death investigation is still ongoing, Pelletier's family is calling for federal investigators to take over after they claim local law enforcement has failed to treat the case with urgency. They even have a change.org position because most people don't believe this story of him just getting up and taking off. Hey, Lana Love. Thank you so much for joining me here today. Thank you, thank you. Um, it's really bizarre to say that somebody would just start acting erratically. Sorry, let me stop sharing this here. And just get up out your car, they're your family, and you would just let them go, right? It's very bizarre for anyone to believe that story. So let's hear what Giovanni's family has to say about this. All right, let me go ahead and share my screen here. Obviously, his mother and her fiance feel very strongly about it. Let's hear from them.
Don't upload your videos to YouTube. Upload to Restream, where we will live stream it to YouTube.
Awesome. I mean, I guess we'll just kind of start open-ended. I mean, obviously, this has to be just a horrible ordeal for you guys. Just what's going through your mind that you want people to know?
So I think the biggest thing for us is just right now, while we're still searching for answers and still looking for information, is just really keeping Gio's memory alive in all of the amazing things that we know about him. I believe that Gio's personality, his infectious smile, the brightness that he's brought to the world is really what's captivated so many people and what's drawn them to the story. I know I've never heard of a story similar to this, where you have somebody that's gone missing and we're unable to find any answers right away. I really think that Gio always wanted the world to know who he was. We wish it was under different circumstances, but we're just grateful for the support that we've had so far.
And what do you want people to know about Gio, that people that don't know him or had never met him before?
He was very caring and empathetic. He's an older brother of four younger siblings, and was so many of they were his shadow in some circumstances. They looked up to him. They learned from him. As far as like Bridget was saying,
And that's the part that's a little bit concerning. Hello, everybody who's coming in. We have your fave Mexican. What is going on, my favorite Mexican? Mukavelli says, "Hey, hey, Flo," and then he said something disturbing about a big daddy. I'm gonna need you to settle down, sir. Um, but thank you for joining me here. It's kind of sad and it's kind of difficult for a family to grasp because not only is this the first time that they're hearing anything about substance use from this young man, but acting erratically. I'm just going to say this, guys. Marijuana might be something that a lot of people think is positive and good, but at the end of the day, we don't know what effect it has on people on the individual level. There is a certain there's a certain story or stereotype that we've heard that certain people, they it only takes one time and using substances will unlock mental illnesses in them. So somebody might use a substance that everyone else uses, and that unlocks symptoms of schizophrenia or things like that. You know what I'm saying? So I do think it was probably very disturbing for his family to hear or believe that he would have, taken a substance and started acting erratically or just started acting erratically in general. So we're going to hear also different sides from the cousins about what the motives were and things like that, but we'll get into that a little bit later. Somebody's in the chat fighting about an omelet. I think it's cute. Not you over 18. Folks need to put the weed down. It imbalances the brain. Yeah, that's why I try to say, like, whether I'm a proponent of marijuana or not, whether I think it's a good substance or not, I do think that everyone doesn't know the effect that marijuana will have on them. So I think sometimes, especially if you get to the older ages, 18, 19, 20, and you haven't used substances, it's important to be very careful, right? And to be with people that you trust if you do decide to open that can of paint up. Because, yeah, it can certainly lead to issues like what happened here, where he might have started acting erratically after one use of whatever substance, But yeah. What is going on, BYT Goat? What is going on? He says, "What's good, Flora?" I am covering the case of Giovanni Pelletier. There's been an update in this case. This young man was going to obviously meet the black side of his family for the first time ever, and something happened. He ended up out of the vehicle and things like that. When he's smoking big court. Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like, everybody has their own has their own walk with weed. Like, you can't just assume everybody should smoke it at some point, right? We should definitely um be cautious with using substances, whether people have had a mostly positive experience with it or not. Beth, I don't know what they're doing in this chat. I don't know. I don't know. But let's continue though, because obviously I think this is probably the first time Gio's family is hearing anything about him using substances or having an issue with substance use. So they're grappling with who he was versus what might have happened in that car when he did, let's say, use substances for the first time. So
He could light up the room just by being in it. Just his big smile, his big laugh, his big heart.
He was definitely somebody that always could recognize when somebody needed support, and definitely was like drawn towards maybe the kid that was left out or the one that like wasn't included. He always made such an effort to make sure everybody like felt seen and heard and understood. He was so compassionate and so understanding of different people's situations. He taught me so much about empathy and about being understanding if somebody was a little different than you or if somebody had a different belief. He was just so accepting and loving. There's nobody that met Gio that he didn't have an impact on. Everybody that knew him remembered him.
And so kind of, I know, obviously, like you said, the circumstances of this have just been, different than other cases. I mean, like, I know, Jeremy, you mentioned, even before your guys' trip down to Florida, he had been in touch with, his biological dad's side of the family and was seemingly excited to find time to go meet them. As far as you guys understood, like, was everything normal other than leaving kind of late at that day, and you thought, all right, it's fine, we're gonna see him off and be back on our way to North Carolina when all this went down?
Yeah, so I primarily raised Giovanni. He did have, so there's two parts of his father's side of the family. So he has his maternal and paternal side of his dad's family. And the maternal side of his family had always been more involved, had been more involved with Gio when he was younger, when I still lived in Florida. I I worked very hard to give Gio a life that was different than the life that I had growing up. And that was one of the reasons that we moved. The environment that we lived in growing up wasn't an ideal environment where I wanted to raise him. I will say that his dad's mother's side of the family, so the maternal side of his dad's family, they've always been very loving and supportive. I won't say that.
So yeah, that's interesting. That's something I definitely didn't know. I don't think a lot of us knew that. So this young man Giovanni, his family, his father's side of the family has two sides that actually at some point tried to be involved. It sounds like the maternal side of his dad's family was consistent. He knew them, she knew them, but the paternal side wasn't. And I wonder what attracted him. Just having his dad's mom, that should be a lot. But sometimes people just want to know more about themselves, about where they come from. And I think his identity was definitely something that he probably struggled with, as a lot of young people do around that age, that self-discovery age. But um, yeah, I didn't know that, but I'm also curious to know what the dynamic was between the father's maternal and paternal family. I don't know if they're going to speak on that, but let's see.
I have anything necessarily negative to say about his dad's father's side of the family. They just weren't as involved with Gio growing up. I understood the draw for Gio to want to get to know his family. And these were people that I was around growing up too. So I have a lot of love for them and I trust them. And I'll say trusted them. And I felt like my son would be safe. I didn't think that there was a possibility that something could have gone wrong. I've worked really hard to give Gio a good life.
Very hard.
And I would have never let him leave that day if I had any doubt. I trusted this side of the family, and again, I've never accused anybody of anything. I've never blamed anybody for everything or for anything at all. I just want answers, and I just want a better understanding.
What happened that night?
There's never been anything to lead me to believe that something negative would have happened, or I never would have let Giovanni get in that car. That's something I have to live with for the rest of my life. And the only thing I'm asking for is just answers and just something that can help give my children and myself and my fiance some peace, because you can't even start to have closure until you have a better idea of what happened.
And I know grief takes on many faces, right? It starts to blame, it can be all types of things, right? It can be troubling. Grief can really put you in a place where you're stuck. But I do think for her family and for the public, this just doesn't sound right. It's not going to be easy for these people to move on and accept that Gio is gone without understanding why. You know what I'm saying? Like, especially she's saying there's nothing that would lead me to believe. This makes me think there was no prior mental health issues. There was no prior substance use, right? So, yeah. I can't get into that, your fave Mexican. What is wrong with you? I can't tell you people where I work. But I do work in a prison, so that's why I don't have a lot of time. I don't have a lot of time to be on here like I used to, but I'm trying to build a new consistent schedule. So I was on vacation all this week, but I was so tired. So yeah. Yeah. A lot of people didn't see that coming. But I definitely think there wasn't a lot in his background. Yeah, there's lots of stages besides the many, many stages of grief, right? The fact that there was nothing, there's no answer, there's no immediate answers for them on why this would have happened. Now, a lot of times, people who have family who use substance or who suffer with mental health, when those people pass away, it's not to say that everyone's like, oh my God, I was not surprised, like, oh, that I saw that coming. I'm not saying that, but a lot of times there are things that would have pointed to that directly versus somebody normal for all intents and purposes, normal, having no social issues, having no mental health issues, and then poof, out of nowhere, they take a substance and now they're tweaking out or whatever the case may be. Because there's a few different stories about what they said led to his erratic behavior, but that stuff doesn't just pop off out of nowhere. There's a lot of things that lead to that. Yeah, there's a lot of things that lead to that. It doesn't just pop up. Um, Thank you so much. Oh Lord, I will never do that, but I never knew how common this was until I started working in prison. Like crazy. I never knew how much it happened. I thought it was just in the movies. I thought it was just on the news, but especially after that CO in Arkansas, I realized that it was a lot more common than we think. Cons be pretty crafty. Yes, there was a whole book that they had us read like as part of training about how manipulative prisoners are. Like it's just something for us to learn. But yeah, very true. Are we watching true crime or has chat turned into a hookup session? Beth, listen, just ignore people. Do people have wrenches? If it becomes really distracting, just do what you need to do with the wrench. I definitely don't want the show to become distracted by weirdness in the chat. So just don't overdo it, right? But if the conversations are getting inappropriate or weird, that could compromise the channel, then definitely go ahead and utilize those wrenches for me. Anybody who has them, okay? Let me just go ahead and make sure that somebody has them. So, okay. Just don't overdo it, right? Sorry, guys. Sorry. Da, 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 da. Here we go. I'm just gonna go ahead and do that. Please don't like overdo it. But if it starts to get weird, definitely just boom, give them a love tap to just take a break. Because I definitely don't want to compromise the channel. No prison guards be sleeping. He said, "No, I'm innocent." Well, keep it cute in the chat then, because I don't want people to be distracted by weird stuff. Weird stuff. Um, yeah. With each other and the inmates, yes, they do. They do. That's something as well. There's a lot of in sleeping in the prison. So, yeah. All right, let's continue. I don't know how we got so off topic.
Yeah, and I guess obviously, like you said, you don't blame anybody or just want answers, but at the same time, most people watching this, that's the first thing that would jump out to the average person. It's like, okay, you leave 20 minutes later, you get that text that no parent would ever want to get, like help, help, help. It begs that $1 million question, like why?
Yes, absolutely. And I won't say that I don't have fears of those things being true. I guess this is just the part of me that's always been compassionate or empathetic to somebody else's situation. If I don't have any solid information, I would never want to accuse somebody of doing something. I will say there are things that I can say. Obviously, this is still an open investigation, but there are concerning factors. But I'm grateful, when I think of Gio, I think of him having my heart, and I'm grateful for the compassion that I'm giving, even when I don't want to, even when it doesn't feel easy, to not place blame, to just ask for answers. There are answers out there that we're not being given. There is information that could help us have a better understanding of what happened. And I hope that those people that have those answers can get the courage to speak up, because our family and a lot of other people will continue to have the pain that we have without knowing anything. We'll never be able to get to closure if we always have to wonder what really happened that day.
And I mean, it's coming anonymously, like that still.
And I wonder what she means by there are answers out there that we're not being given. And I think what she's talking about is what really led to that young man being, put out, or, having to have this moment where he's tweaking out and being on the street, instead of in the vehicle, in the safety of the vehicle. Hey, Kanchanari. Mukavelli, I didn't remove anybody, all right? Changes are being made because I think the conversation is getting a little inappropriate. We're going to stick to the conversation that's happening in the chat. So just Let's not be weird. Okay. Y'all threw me off for a second. See, this is the problem with trolls. This is the problem with trolls. They come in and they distract you, and then you get all distracted. But yeah, I think she's alluding that we should know what the interaction really was. If you just say, "Oh, they just started acting erratically and they got out of the car and then we left," there's a problem. One, you delayed getting real help for that person because you knew they were in mental health crises, right? You also delayed contacting the family and letting them know what was going on, right? I do think, 18 or not, this family entrusted you to keep their family members safe, to show them who they were, give them access to another part of their family that they didn't know. They probably weren't expecting you to tell them that their son was passed away. Um, what did Cheeto said? He said, "Guilty. Them tears are fake AF. I have no idea what's happening." This is actually the mother of the victim, so let's settle down. But yes, I do think what we know is not enough. That's not enough of an explanation for why this young man was alive one moment and then gone the next. There's no indication that he was doing anything at his home prior to being picked up. The only thing that could have happened is he got with them, something was introduced to them, and then he's gone. That's the only, whether it was something introduced or some circumstance in the vehicle, that's the only thing that could have changed. But let's continue.
Something that can be done.
Have have his cousins that were with him, do you think they're telling the full story?
It's hard to answer because of the investigation. There's too many questions that are unanswered, that don't point in their favor. They didn't have legal counsel until his body was found. They came in for questioning, and now obviously don't want any. I think I'm trying to think of other key points that might help. I mean, there's certain things like that is hard to understand the reason if you weren't involved in any sort of anything, even if it was they didn't know what happened. You know what I'm saying? If they didn't even know what happened, then at the very least, give what you do know so we can help understand. And that's the part that's hard. We're not even getting that. We're not even getting a, hey, we do know this, but we didn't do this. You know what I'm saying? Like anything that could help.
And I'll say that I think the part about all of this, and I think the thing that gives me that doubt and that gives me that fear that there could potentially have been any other involvement that would have been not completely on the responsibility of Giovanni. The inconsistency in the stories and the inconsistency in the information we're getting, the lack of, no one has reached out to me. Nobody has asked me if he was okay. Nobody has said that they were sorry to me, or my family. And nobody has helped us search. Nobody, from Friday morning when I got the message, I jumped out of bed. I didn't even have clothes on, and I ran to the car. I tapped him on the shoulder and said, "I'm leaving." And I ran out the door. And that day I searched by myself for hours. And no mother in the world should ever be in a situation where they're looking for their kid on the side of the road. I put myself in very danger.
Yeah, I mean, besides like the fact that she had to do it on like the side of the road and it was dangerous, the fact that none of them were there trying to say like, "Hey, we were over here," or "This is about where we were," like, "This is where we saw him run off." I feel like if they were completely innocent, like they're trying to act like they are, essentially by like we saw in the article, giving up the vehicle, cooperating, quote unquote, like they would tell a better picture about what happened. Like, okay, we got in the car, we smoke, we lit up a joint, we smoked, da da da, whatever they say. If they were really interested in helping this woman find her child, they wouldn't be so dismissive of her, of the search for the boy and things like that. There is something to be said about that. um Ooh, pancake sounds good. There is something to be said about how they handled her. I also don't understand why they wouldn't be helping her search for him. You know, they would have the most relevant information on where he was, where they were, where they left him off, and things like that. But instead, you find her having to track him on her own and figure out where he is versus them being coming forward and being active in the search. They did nothing to help her. You know, that's tragic. You know, the fact that they would be more willing to come pick him up than they are to explain what happened and where he is now. You know, they obviously didn't know exactly, but they knew whereabouts where they last saw him.
Situations trying to find answers because the people that I called first wouldn't help me. I know it, I believe in my heart it's because he's 18. I
Well, if you're coming in now and you're still trying to figure out what's going on, I want to give some context just so that we're all up to speed here, right? Giovanni Pelletier on August 1st at 1:30 a.m. gets picked up by his paternal family members, right? His dad's dad. He gets picked up at 1:30 in the morning and they're taking him from a vacation in Florida on one part to another part of Florida to see other family members. They pick him up and not even 20 minutes later, he texts his mother, "Help me." Next thing you know, um, obviously the mother didn't see the picture, the message till the morning. She fell asleep because it was already late in the night. The next day, she goes looking for him, doesn't find him. They keep looking, and about 10 days later, on August 14th, which was earlier this week, they find his body in a ravine or in a retention pond. Sorry. So there's a lot of questions about what happened. They say that he was acting erratically, that he just began acting weird, and then they just let him out on the highway and left. So they have a lot of questions, rightfully so. And I would never think that somebody that I'm related to or that is family of my child would allow something like this to happen, especially without sending out an alarm right when it happens and saying like, "Oh, we gotta go, you guys gotta go look for him. You need to go figure out where he is. Call the search team, call the police. He took off. I'm sorry, but he did substances. We gave him some weed, we gave him alcohol, whatever the case may be, and get him help." But I feel like the fact that they did none of that is why there's so many questions, like they're saying. Yeah, me too, Joanne. I can't stand that he said that, especially because I was already thinking about pancakes before. But yeah, this one is really a mystery, and I don't know if we'll get the answers anytime soon. The police can only investigate, and they're still investigating. This is very new. All right, let's continue to hear some more from his mom and her fiance. So this is not Giovanni's biological father. His biological father is in prison, and he was trying to get to know his father's family.
wish people would understand, he was still making plans for college. He still lives at home. He still came to me when he had an earache. He's not a grown adult man. Yes, he's 18, but he's not an adult. And, Gio had a lot of plans for his life. Gio wouldn't have reached out and said, help me for nothing. Gio would never have put that on my heart if there wasn't something that he really needed help from. But getting up and searching those days, I didn't feel like I had the support of the people that I reached out to first. I didn't feel like Manatee County and Sarasota helped me. I had to chase the car almost all the way to Tampa to try to get information to where his phone was. I'll say Charlotte County has gone, from my understanding of what their responsibilities are, they've gone above and beyond. They've been consistently in touch with me. They've consistently asked what they can do to help, even though they're not the ones that are directly responsible for this case. There's one particular detective, I'll say his first name is Brandon. If it weren't for him, I wouldn't have been able to keep doing this. And had the strength to push through. There's another detective that came in at the end from Charlotte County that was extremely helpful. I don't want there to be any misunderstanding about what county has been helpful or what county has been supportive, but Charlotte County has made me feel like I'm not alone. And I can't say I've received the same response from Manatee or Sarasota, and not at the fault of anybody specifically, but I would tell people not to come to Florida. I would tell people not to visit here because God forbid something happens to your family. I don't know that they would have the support that a family would need at that time.
And she's not wrong. People have a lot of frustrations with Florida law enforcement, how things are handled. Now, Florida is very transparent with body cams and records and things like that. But in terms of law involvement and what they do, because of the broad definition of the law and application of the law in Florida, there I can understand where she's coming from. She's pretty much saying like they're not just going to automatically assume foul play. They're going to really dig around a little bit and kind of leave you um, hanging by a cliff, right? While you're trying to figure out where your loved one is. There was a lot of time that they sat on this that they could have already found him, is what she's implying, I think. So I don't think she's wrong about Florida, unfortunately. No offense to my Floridians. Love you guys. But I've heard similar things about how the police handle matters in Florida and things like that. So let's continue.
I just feel very alone. And I felt very alone those 7 days searching. And I know that Charlotte County had pulled resources and they tried to help, but this isn't a thing you should navigate as a parent.
They said they searched that area where he was.
And yeah, 18-year-olds are still very much babies. Now, before we go into too much of what his parents have to say, because again, she did say that she primarily raised him by herself, and that's a fact, right? So before we go into what his parents have to say, we're gonna go into this new video from Law and Crime. Yesterday, they spoke to several people who are actually involved in this case and can give us a little bit better background information. So if you guys aren't subscribed to Law and Crime, I don't need to tell you to do that. They're a very massive channel, but this is where this video is coming from. Hey Ian, he says, love Florida. I like Florida to visit. I'm not even gonna sit here and lie and say it's not beautiful. There isn't nice things to do. But I just, in terms of general safety, the fact that anybody can have a gun, yeah, that's my problem. Yeah, 25-year-olds are still babies, exactly. But the fact that he was 18, like he's fresh out of high school, fresh out of being under the purview of their family. So, yeah, anyone under 40 is a baby. I've heard that too. All right, let's get into this documentary here, or this video, I should say.
Florida family's vacation ended in tragedy when 18-year-old Giovanni Pelletier went missing, and authorities have now confirmed that the body found in a Florida pond is indeed him. With questions still swirling about his final hours, I'm going to be speaking with a coroner about the forensic process, what the identification means, what we still need to know, and what might be happening behind the scenes. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. This is not an update I wanted to bring to you here on Sidebar. We talked about the case of Giovanni Pelletier, the 18-year-old North Carolina teen who went missing earlier this month. We did a whole sidebar on him. Well, now authorities have confirmed that the body found in a Manatee County pond is indeed Giovanni. The Manatee County Sheriff's Office said the District 12 Medical Examiner's Office used dental records to confirm his identity. They say his body was in such an advanced state of decomposition that it required additional forensic testing. The cause of death, to be clear, we don't know what it is. It hasn't yet been determined. As officials, they await toxicology results, which could take several weeks. But if you haven't been following the case, I'm going to catch you up. 18-year-old Giovanni Pelletier had traveled with his mom, Bridget, her fiancé, and his 4 younger siblings to Englewood, Florida. That's on the Gulf Coast. It's south of Tampa and St. Petersburg. But this trip wasn't just about beaches and family time.
So that was a part of it that I didn't understand at first. So they're from North Carolina, but they were vacationing in Florida, right? When this cousin that he got in contact with, that's when he was introduced to being able to meet these people. It's not like they were in North Carolina and they drove to see him from there. He was in Florida and these family members said, well, he's in Florida, let's go see him. That's kind of like the different that I didn't understand in the beginning. He was from out of town visiting already in Florida when this happened.
time. It was something else. It had more meaning because Giovanni was also planning to meet some cousins from his dad's side of the family, people that he had never met before, barely remembered, in hopes of reconnecting. But instead, days later, he's found dead in a pond off I-75. This case is complicated. It stretches across multiple Florida counties and involves several different law enforcement agencies. It includes conflicting accounts of what happened in Giovanni's final hours. So I want to walk you through the timeline here. Now, Giovanni grew up in the Raleigh, North Carolina area, but until age 4, he lived in Florida. And after turning 18 this past April, Bridget, his mother, says he became very curious about his father's side of the family. She's of Italian and Puerto Rican descent. His dad is African American. And Giovanni wanted to connect with that part of his family tree. Before the trip, he joined a group chat with...
So that's something else that his family doesn't connect. That the news doesn't connect. He already knew his maternal father's family. So he had been connecting with them for a very long time. So it's not like he didn't know anything about his father. He just particularly didn't know the paternal side of his father's family. And you can see there, he would want to meet everybody. He would want to know every little last bit of history about himself because he likely was spending way more time with his mother and her side of the family.
3 paternal cousins. And then you go to August 1st at around 1:30 a.m. Those cousins apparently picked him up from Englewood. They were reportedly headed to Mims, that's on the other side of the state. It's several hours away. Now, why the cousins, who apparently had never met Giovanni before, picked him up so late at night, that we still don't have an answer for at the time of this recording. And by the way, the cousins' ages haven't been made public either, so just keep that point. But not long after leaving, Giovanni sent disturbing messages to his family. One to his mom simply read, "Mom, help." Now, Bridget was asleep at the time. She didn't see it until the morning. He also apparently sent similar messages to his grandfather, his aunt. And by the time Bridget checked her phone, she had missed a FaceTime call from Giovanni. And there was a voicemail from his paternal grandfather saying there had been, quote, some kind of altercation and that the cousins had left him on the roadside in Bradenton. It's about 50 miles or so away from where the family had been.
And I don't know if they're going to do it a little bit later in the video with the mom because she does take a while. Ian, you're such an idiot. She does take a while to get into everything, and that means she might have got into it a little bit later. But we didn't hear this part where the grandpa is calling her and saying, hey, there was some sort of altercation, some sort of fight, right? Now, that would be why we wouldn't be hearing a lot from the family of the, of the father's father, whatever, his paternal cousin, whatever. That's probably why we're not hearing a lot. He's a young person. He might be implicated in this as well. Ian, before you go, do me a favor, and those of you who are listening, hit the like button for me, guys, if you're enjoying this story today, if you're enjoying the content. Let's continue.
Vacationing, that's the allegation. Now, Bridget apparently tried to track Giovanni's location using his phone's GPS. She found his backpack, she found his phone inside, and this was near State Road 70 and I-75. But here's the thing. She later told People magazine, my son eats, sleeps, showers, breathes his phone. She said he would never have left it behind. So how did Giovanni end up outside the car? Well, according to Bridget, one cousin later told her that they'd smoked marijuana with Giovanni after picking him up. This is an allegation. The cousin claimed that Giovanni got paranoid, cursed at him, threatened him with a knife during a roadside confrontation, and then ran off. Again, this is an allegation. But I will tell you that that account is slightly different from the Charlotte County Sheriff's Office public statement. And that statement said that Giovanni, quote, began acting a...
Stop, because there's nothing funny about that. It is sad, though, right? To think that the first time that this young man is meeting these cousins, things turn deadly. Makes you question if it was worth him meeting them at all. Yes, please like and subscribe. I would appreciate it. But how far can someone tweak with their family? Like, I would never, whether my cousin was tweaking or not, like, I'm not about to put you out of my car and leave you on the street. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you pull out a knife, I'm going to say, listen, sit your little stinky, funky behind down, and I'm going to drive you to a hospital, and you shut the hell up. I'm not going to escalate it further by stopping the car and turning it into a duel or whatever. You should have just left his stupid self sitting down in the car and said, "Hey, listen, be quiet." There was enough people in the car where they could have subdued him without letting him go deleted, you know? But, all right, let's continue.
Radically before exiting the vehicle and walking away near State Road 70. ABC News has reported that this information likely came from the cousins, but search efforts, they began across multiple counties immediately. Giovanni's family offered a $10,000 reward for information leading to his location, the arrest or conviction of anyone responsible for harming him. That reward, by the way, was reportedly later increased to $25,000. And according to posts from Bridget and other relatives on social media, Giovanni's paternal relatives didn't participate in any of the searches. Now, we couldn't confirm that on our own, but that's, again, another allegation in this case. Not to take away from this story in any way, but one of the reasons we can stay on top of this follows that it showing one activity. For Ed would tell them about. He said this has been found. Brevard County Purchase, they're going to ask you where you heard about them. Please support Sidebar. Tell them that we sent you. Brevard County Sheriff Wayne Ivey spoke at a press conference. This is before Giovanni's body had been found. And his goal was to clarify how his agency got involved. And he said the search parties in Brevard County were organized because of misinformation about the car that was involved and that there was no credible evidence Giovanni was ever in Brevard. We also spoke, by the way, with investigator Billy Lane from the volunteer group We Are the Essentials. This is an incredible group. It's a team of former law enforcement and military personnel who use their skills to help families locate missing loved ones. It's an incredible work that they do. Lane, who was brought in on this case, described.
And that's really awesome. That's really, really awesome for them to have something on the ground like that was willing to be more involved, try to get some information of their own, investigate, and they have the skills and the training to do so. Um, how many pancakes you want, Flo? I'll take 4. Just kidding. I'll take like 2.5. And then you can put some chocolate chips and some honey on it. Um, yeah, I wonder how these people. It must have been really shocking for her that some strangers were more willing to take up the case of her son than his biological family. That's very, very unfortunate. And it was probably disturbing because, like, why would you guys come pick him up if you would do this and then just leave him there and not participate in trying to find him and bring him back home?
Their approach here.
We started a conversation Sunday night with the family, and what we try to do is provide ground assistance. We are, ground searchers. So our job is to gather as much facts as possible. We have to start our own investigation because typically law enforcement won't share information with us, which is fine. So we start from ground zero using the family's information that they are able to provide us of the locations, times, dates, and places. And then Monday morning, we were on the ground at 7 a.m. to start a ground search, and we started moving forward from there.
And what did you do after that?
So our ground searches typically were isolated to the road area, which was very near where the family lived at. And this was based on several factors. One of them was text messages that we received, and we did a timeline of the text message. And based on the help mom help text message, he would have been in this area in the vehicle. Based on the other information the mother had provided us, based on the GPS path of travel from the home back to Mims, would have taken the car down that road. So we felt like this is a very important area. Plus, it hadn't been searched based on our information. And this was a 10-mile stretch of River Road from Winchester to I-75 that was very secluded. There was no cameras out here. It was very wooded. There was construction zones out there. There are areas that people could have pulled off to the side of the road and stopped without anybody seeing them. Plus, at 2 o'clock in the morning on this road, they had very little traffic. So our job was to start eliminating, our job was to try and locate him alive and in good health. But the secondary is to try to eliminate areas that he is not in. So we were out there hoping to find him. But in the meantime, we were eliminating areas. We use a mapping program, and it shows every step we take. But what's most importantly, shows every step we don't take. So we're able to close in.
And Gito, that's how every chill road trip starts, right? Everyone's cool, everything's cool, and then somebody introduces substances. So, it does sound like that's what the case is here, but this is why you don't just buy drugs. Like, you shouldn't. I don't suggest anybody buy drugs because one, you don't know what those drugs can be laced with, and you don't know what reaction you're going to have to them. You know what I'm saying? So I think this was kind of troubling because there's so much space in between where they were coming from and where they were going. Now, this is all in Florida, but as you guys saw from the map that we saw in the beginning, Florida is not small, right? There's lots of strips that are right by the water. This was on the east coast of Florida for the most part, but I'm getting the belief here that there was just so much land to go over. Um, East side of Florida. I want to just take a look at it really quick on a map so we can see kind of what it looks like. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Let me. It's a good one. Okay, this is a good one. So I'm going to share this and I'm going to open it up. Ooh. All right, and we'll make this a little bit bigger here. So I mean, they were essentially going from what the mom was describing, the East Coast, or what they were describing here as. Sorry, I was completely in the wrong tab. But the east side of Florida, just kind of where those 125 is, and they were going like kind of across to go and visit. All right, so it is a lot of. This might not seem like it, but when you include bodies of water and things like that, this turns out to be a lot of space for them to have to look through to figure out. And now I like that they actually went to them. They went to them and asked like, okay, how far is the house? Like, when were you guys texting? When did he text? He texted several relatives, including his mom. So around when did those conversations happen and how to track things like that? What was the official cause of death? Drowning, asphyxia, physical trauma. We don't have any idea about that yet, but because they still need a toxicology report, which will tell them a lot about what was going on internally in his body, it's weeks away. All right, so there's still it's still undetermined. There's still no cause of death yet. So we'll find out at the end of the day in a few weeks. So but this is kind of where he was, so his family, being from North Carolina, probably didn't have that much of an understanding of where he was and what that was in relation to where he was going. So I'm trying to see if I can identify any of the places that they just talked about, but we'll let them. Well, it seems like he went from one side to the other. All right, let's get back into the video.
In those areas. So for 5 days, we spent on the ground searching. But in addition to that, we also provided support for the family. We were answering questions for the family as former law enforcement officers. Why isn't this happening? When will this start happening? And what should we expect? In addition to that, we're also filtering outreach through media sources so we could keep Giovanni's story alive in the news. So that was very time consuming, to say the least. It was very encompassed. There was a lot of moving parts to this, and the fact that this could be a search that would span more than 50 miles from the home. So we had to organize and structure our search based on facts that we were being given at the time.
Then we go to last weekend, and authorities preliminarily identified Giovanni's remains that were found in a retention pond near where he was last seen.
Now, I want to say, Lana says they have some weed out there that causes problems. My brother got a hold of one. He stopped using it and went back to normal. I'm glad he stopped. Yeah, this is the thing that I'm saying. Like, it's truly, truly disturbing, right? For you to think, oh, I'm just going to use a substance really quick and it's going to be nothing. It's going to be fun. It's going to enhance my experience. But you really, really have no idea what could happen. You have no idea what this could lead to in the future, how it can impact your health, impact your mood even within that moment. So it is. You can't really trust any drug out there anymore. You never could, but you certainly can't now because there's so many different drugs. That I honestly, people who still buy street drugs are brave. I'm just telling you something. With dispensaries, and I know there's a lot of places that don't have them anymore, but with this or yet, but with dispensaries out there, you are brave to buy stuff on the streets. You really are. You don't know what you're getting. You don't know what people are putting in those things that you're trying or that you're using. Like, yeah, I'm glad that your brother stopped using because that could have been a personality change that was induced by the substance. You know, a lot of times people don't realize how impactful some of these drugs can be on our brain chemistry, right? Especially if it's something that could unlock a personality trait or a psychiatric trait that's in your bloodline. You know, you just never know with drugs and with mental health and things like that. I wouldn't recommend personally for anybody to buy anything on the street, much less in a dispensary. You know, so
Now, previously, the Manatee County Sheriff's Office said the body was so decomposed that additional testing was needed to confirm the identity. But we now know through the identification of those dental
we know heat makes decomposition rapid, right? It makes things decompose faster. So unfortunately, the heat and the season that we're in didn't help Giovanni at all.
records that these are indeed the remains of Giovanni Pelletier. Bridget had started a GoFundMe to cover search expenses, but after Giovanni's death, she updated it to raise funds for funeral, medical, legal costs. It raised more than $32,000 so far. The Change.org petition is now calling for the FBI to step in, citing the case's multi-county nature, potential gang connections, possible interstate elements, and it warns that without federal involvement, key evidence could be lost and those responsible may never be held accountable. Okay, so what's the perspective?
I don't know how the gang got in there. Again, I want to know more information about that. Like, I feel like, in some degree, that the mom and the police are holding back about what they know about these cousins. We know nothing right now. And I know it's in their best interest to keep everything under wraps during an investigation, but I really want to know. I'm not going to lie. I really, really want to know. The history of these cousins, who they are, what their backgrounds are. Like, we need to know way more about these people than we know at the moment. Guys, do me a favor, please. We only got 9 likes and we have 58 people watching. Please do me a favor if you could stop and hit the like button for me. All right, let's continue
On this, and who better to bring in than Dr. Nada Rutherford from the Richland County Coroner's Office. Thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate you taking the time. A little confused about dental records exactly. So can you walk us through how dental records exactly are used to confirm the identity of a body, especially when you have an advanced decomposition case like Giovanni's?
Well, sometimes that's all we have to go on. So when you have a person who is missing and you have a possible identity, one of the things that I say to families is, I don't want to give you someone else's bad news. So please, if you can remember where your child, where your loved one may have had dental procedures done. Do they have a bridge in their mouth? Did they ever get veneers? Did they have their wisdom teeth removed? Give me a little bit of that dental history that you remember and where they may have been seen, because those x-rays lined up against the skeletal x-rays are going to give us a pretty clear picture.
This may be a juvenile question. I think I say that all the time when I interview an expert such as yourself, because this is not my expertise. But is it would I be correct in saying that when you're dealing with teeth, they are harder to destroy than other parts of the body, and while other parts of the body may be would not be able to be used to be for purposes of identification or easily destroyed, the teeth are different?
They are. They're going to typically stay with the skull unless there's been some sort of blunt force injury, crushing injury, or projectile injury to the face. So sometimes if we're putting together a skull, because that's what's going to happen in the autopsy suite, this advanced decomposed body, not only will the pathologist take a look, but they will often bring in a forensic anthropologist who will help to piece the skull and lay out the skeleton as much as possible to look for blunt force injuries, to look for.
And the sad part is he hasn't really been missing that long that you would think there would be such rapid decomposition. That means he wasn't alive long after he texted his family. That's what it's giving to me, that he probably passed away right after this incident with his cousins, And until we really get the autopsy, we're not going to know what happened to this young man. I also want to note that the lady who's speaking there, I guess she might be a forensic pathologist, whatever, was talking about how the teeth are usually with the skull, and so that's why they're able to identify people unless there's some sort of blunt force trauma or other type of injury to the face. So I'm curious to see what condition his body is going to be in once the final report of the autopsy is out. And I also know that his mother was getting a second opinion. So what does she already know about the autopsy that we don't, that is going to shed more light on this story? Let's continue.
Or any crushing injuries, sawing injuries, cutting injuries that may have happened to the bone. And it's no different for the teeth. A lot of times when we find a skull, the teeth are still there unless they had some sort of dental procedure where teeth were removed. And so comparing those dental records for someone that we believe it to be is very helpful.
And how accurate is it?
It's accurate. There's no two people have the exact same mouth. And so if you compare those dental records and they line up, that's the great thing about looking at the skeleton, is that your teeth have, like, you have your normal anatomy, right? But most of us have had a cavity. We're not going to have a cavity in the exact same spot. Those things should line up. And he's 18. He has to have some sort of dental history.
That's a good point. And by the way, just generally speaking, we're talking about a very specific state of these remains, where they were found. What are the challenges that coroners face when you have a body that's discovered in water in this advanced state of decomposition, and why does the decomposition happen?
So first of all, you can have a complete skeletonization of a body within 7 days. And most people don't know that. So they think that you're dealing with this whole body here. So let's talk about the factors. What has been the average?
Easy. It just takes 7 days for a body to be completely, to turn into like basically just bones. So yeah, he's probably been dead for a very long time. The fact that he was so decomposed by the time they found him, meaning he probably died right away. Um, I wonder how much hope there was for the family. Like if we're gonna know a timeline of how much time he was alive after after he sent those text messages and tried to reach out. We do know that the phone and the body were separate from each other. So again, these things aren't lining up with the story that his cousins had.
Temperature in Florida during the time that this young man was missing? What was the precipitation levels? Was it rainy? Was it windy? What was going on during that time? Also, is there any animal activity for that area? So you have to think about gators. You have to think about any wildlife that may have come in contact with that body. Just vultures, for example, they're going to fly around where a decomposed body is. And so what is it that has happened to this body? And it does prove to be challenging because you not only have the outdoor elements, the temperature, but you also have water, and wet things break down faster. And so that moisture level is going to be really important. And what state? Advanced decomposition can mean a number of things. If he was submerged, those gases started happening and he floated back to the top, he's not even going to look like himself for a visual identification. So they can only go off of what he was wearing, proximity of where he may have gone missing, but those dental records and then DNA are going to be the most helpful things to make sure that this is your man. But the other thing about this is, where are the other things that should have been with him? His cell phone, his backpack, his clothing items. Was he found?
This is exactly what I'm talking about, right? How much time was there in between this young man texting, "Help me, mom," calling his grandfather, telling his grandfather about the altercation, and him ending up in this retention pond? There was way too much time in between there. And like she mentioned, it's very possible that wildlife got involved in this and he could have caused him more damage, more harm, depending on where he was, right? The idea of gators, too, right? I forget that about Florida, right? How common are gators in this area? What kind of harm would they have been to somebody inebriated on the side of the road, maybe next to a body of water? Right? These are things that we really don't know the answers to. Um, your breakfast sounds delicious. Yes, I did. I did. Not when it first happened, but right around when we first started hearing about this. So he first went missing on August 1st, and I think I covered this on a body cam earlier, either this week or late last week. So let's continue.
Found naked? Was he found wearing clothes? So many things come into play because all of those things are going to tell us a little piece of the story.
Yeah, what do you think about it? I mean, this is a very interesting place for him to be found, right? This pond.
So here's my number one thought. Red flag leaving at 1:30 a.m. If my 18-year-old son is leaving at 1:30 in the morning, I'm staying up to make sure that he is where he tells me he's going to be. That was weird to me. But again, we listen and we don't judge. The other things that are challenging for me, the toxicology report, was his body so advancedly decomposed that we have tissue? Do we have liver? Because that's probably going to be one of the things that's going to help us the most. A week out, we should still have some of the organs to be able to test: brain, liver, kidney. Do we have eyes? We don't know. Again, was there animal activity? Eyes are sometimes one of the first things to go. And so this is just a weird case. If you look at the time frame, 35 minutes max that he was gone from his mom. He called for help. He tried calling several people.
Yeah, I'm not gonna judge either. And I do think she was being a little judgmental, like how the hell you let your son leave at 1 o'clock in the morning and you don't even stay awake to make sure he gets his destination. You gotta think about it. She was on vacation herself. It's 1 o'clock at night. Maybe she just wanted to make it happen for him. Like, okay, yeah, you can go see this family member. All right, I'm gonna see you off, but couldn't keep herself awake. Well, it's 1 o'clock in the morning. But for me, if it was somebody I love and I'm in a state that I don't live in, I am going to wait to see that you get to your destination. But it doesn't mean that that would have changed the outcome of this case. So that is something that begs the question, like, damn, like right after he left, and you don't have any idea about what happened or anything like that. So, I mean, we'll find out more eventually. We are. I don't know if the FBI is going to get involved, but we're definitely going to find out more. Let's continue.
He sent text messages. The cousin supposedly tried to call. What was this erratic behavior? Was he known to have erratic behavior? I want to look at his mental health history. I want to look at his medical history. What happened in this very short time frame? And did he just spaz out and the cousins got freaked out and left him? Or were they doing drugs? Did this young man present something to them and say, hey, let's try this? We will never know. We need those cousins to talk.
By the way, what about toxicology? So how does toxicology testing work, and why does it take several weeks to determine the cause of death in a case like this?
Well, you want to be careful. You don't want to make any rush decisions. So you're looking, instead of us having blood and urine samples and possibly vitreous samples, which is from the eye, those things can be run a little bit faster. But when you're looking at the liver, brain, kidney, you have to do some more specialized testing, and you want to confirm that testing. So it's not about just doing a test and saying, hey, we see opiates here or we see marijuana. It's about going the step further and trying to quantify those positive results so that you have a number to see if they fall within toxic or critical ranges.
I was wondering, one of the things that might be a challenge, if you have multiple jurisdictions that are involved, right? What role does a coroner play? How do they coordinate with law enforcement? And if you are dealing with multiple jurisdictions, multiple agencies?
So in the state of Florida, they have a medical examiner system. So what they typically do is the medical examiner's office is going to be the one that's performing that autopsy, but they have investigators that are bringing them information from the scene so they can try to piece together what may have happened to this young man. In some areas, they're called investigator coroners, deputy coroners, coroner investigators. And so I know that the state of Florida has investigators that go out to scenes, but they're just bringing information back to that medical examiner. In my jurisdiction,
and I wonder how much second opinion will do that as well. Because that's a critical piece, right? Sometimes those investigative coroners can make conclusions based off of the environment and the condition of the body, or things that things that have happened to the body over time in connection with the environment and how that plays into their cause of death. So I wonder if a second opinion will have that expertise or knowledge or ability to investigate as well. That I would hope so, because there are critical details and information that people generally get when they're able to go on scene and factor in all those other environmental factors. Now, you guys know we have been having heat waves. I don't know how hot it regularly is in Florida, but I'm like that heat did not help this situation in terms of getting DNA evidence and things like that. And sometimes when people do foul things, that's why they feel like they can get away with it because they're like, oh, these ponds, they eat things up, they eat people up. You throw something in there, most of it will be gone in a week. Most of it will be gone in a couple weeks, right? We might find pieces of a person in places like this, in these swamps or these areas that might have gators and stuff like that. So that's the tricky part of this too, where it's almost some areas. It's almost like people know that they can rely on the environment to sort of clean up some of that DNA evidence as well. Let's continue though.
We work with wherever the body is found, that's who has jurisdiction. So even if a resident lived in Richland County, we had this case a few years ago. The person went missing from Richland County, but they were found a few counties over. Where that body is found becomes the jurisdiction, but they will work with us to receive any information that we may have. And it's usually just law enforcement at that point.
And for this case, there's still a lot of unknowns, right? When we talk about exactly how he died, the circumstances surrounding his death, obviously there's speculation out there. There's questions that might need to be answered. There could always be the possibility of natural versus unnatural causes of death, right? So what is the evidence there? When evidence is limited or it's conflicting, how do you determine whether something is natural or unnatural?
So here's the thing. We know that this young man left in a healthy state. So this is probably not going to be a natural death. At best, it would be undetermined. If they can't find any signs of trauma, the toxicology comes back clean, they will more than likely rule this death as undetermined, maybe rule it as accidental if they thought that he may have wandered into the pond and somehow drowned. But I'm speculating that there may be an undetermined cause of death if there's nothing that pops positive on that toxicology. If they don't see any signs of trauma, they don't see any signs of like blunt force injuries, crushing injuries, anything that looks like he may have been strangled. Determining whether or not he drowned would be difficult because his body is in this body of water. He's swollen. He's going to, bloat and not look like himself. They could take a look at the lungs and see if there's a large amount of fluid in there. But again, he's been in this pond possibly for 7 days or so.
Would you be able to determine time of death?
You would look at bug activity for that, and then you would look at when he was last known to be alive, and you would have a range, but it's not going to be exact unless you find more information that helps you narrow down that time frame.
One thing you mentioned, and I've actually...
It does suck, though, with these types of environments, because, again, sometimes the environment will just eat everything up, right? There's no way to really know exactly when he would have passed, which I think in this case would be kind of critical, especially because he was found away from things that he very much needed to reach out for help like he did initially, right? Not even 30 minutes. They said 23 minutes he was away from the home, and then he reached out for help, right? He said help. He spoke to the grandfather. They found out there was some sort of altercation, right? It didn't take him long to reach out. So that, in combined with the fact that he was found away from all of those things, paints its own story as well. So I wonder how much truth we're actually going to get without the cousins being forthcoming and saying what happened that day.
Talk to other, forensic investigators about this. There is an aspect to your job, and I think you were talking about it, where do you ever conduct interviews yourself with witnesses, family members? Do you take that information, those reports, and how do you determine whether or not it is completing the picture, if it's corroborating the picture? Do you just take it as true? What's your role in trying to determine, because a lot of it is based on, other, witness testimony and what might be the circumstances surrounding a person's death, not just the body itself. What is your role in that?
We put together a timeline. And so the most important question is, when were they last known to be alive and what state of health were they in prior to them going missing. And so we try to put together that timeline. And sometimes when we're talking to families, they give us a lot more information than they would give to law enforcement because we're the coroner's office. We're doing an investigation to try to figure out what happened to your loved one. So they're sometimes sharing information with us that adds to that timeline or takes away from that timeline. When we go and talk in my jurisdiction, we take law enforcement with us. They have body cameras, we don't. And so they turn that body camera on. They're speaking to us. They're giving us information. But anyone who's on that scene, we're going to isolate them, move them away from each other, try to get the full story from everyone that we can. And then law enforcement is going to take information that we give them and information that they gather and put it together. And we typically will do what's called a fatality review so that we can compare information and see if there are any gaps in the stories, any inconsistencies that they may be able to take and go down a different path. Sometimes people tell the coroner's office things that they would never tell law enforcement, and we're able to share that information.
Dr. Nada Rutherford, I got to tell you, I learned so much when you come on. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk about this. It's really a heartbreaking case. We're going to continue to follow it. We want to see what happened here with Giovanni. But really, thank you for making it easy for us to understand. Always appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
And that's all.
So yeah, it's nice to have experts that come in and give us that information, but at the end of the day, we're not going to really know how this case all is going to play out until we hear more from the medical examiner, till we hear more from the people who are investigating this. So obviously the medical examiner, their autopsy, but also the investigators, the police, the cousins. We need to get more information from everybody to be able to put the pieces together on what happened here. But all right, guys. So I am going to head out of here. I'm going to send you guys off with a quick song. Stay tuned, though, guys, because I am coming back. We're going to talk about Dr. Umar Scamar Johnson and just kind of all the things that have unfolded over the last couple of weeks. So if you're interested in that type of content, if you want to hear something about that, if you're not really following these sort of things regularly, then come and check me out. It'll be lots of fun, lots of laughter. All right, let me send you guys off with some music. And do me a favor on the way out, hit the like button, share, subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next one.
Florabella on my screen. Her smile, it shines so bright. She's a queen with every scene. In the morning or the night, recipes and good vibes flow. Every video a gem. Her confidence, it grows and grows. We're inspired like her friends. Unstoppable Flora, she's got that power. Spreading her aura, blossoming like a flower. Through the highs and all the lows, she remains so strong. Her spirit always glows. She's where we all belong. With every like and every share, we feel her energy. No storm too strong, she can't bear. She's setting us all free. Unstoppable Flora, she's got that power. Spreading her aura, blossoming like a flower. Recipes and good vibes flow. Every video a gem. Her confidence, it grows and grows. We're inspired like her friends. Unstoppable Flora, she's got that power. Spreading her aura, blossoming like a flower. Through the highs and all the lows, she remains so strong. Her spirit always glows. She's where we all belong. With every like and every share, we feel her energy. No storm too strong she can't bear. She's setting us all free, unstoppable flora. She's got that power, spreading her aura, blossoming like a flower. Through the highs and all the lows, she remains so strong.